full name is Hemant Sonkar. I am working in Payatu as a lead IoT security consultant and hardware security researcher. So as a consultant, I take care of the client devices more from a hardware perspective. I do the hardware testing of those devices, and based on the report of the testing, I suggest the remediation steps to our client to make the device more secure from a hardware perspective. As a hardware security researcher, I take many various devices like medical devices or any IoT devices for a research purpose to be updated with the vulnerabilities that is coming up in the market, to keep ourselves updated so that our testing process should be very rigorous and very updated. EV is really a very growing market. Mostly all government is implementing policies and incentives to encourage people to switch on EVs to combat the climate changes and the emission of the greenhouse gases. The client belongs to the EV sector, electronic vehicle sector. They give their device for the assessment from a security perspective because it's an EV. So lots of communication protocol was implemented on the device. So it is highly advisable to do the security assessment. The scope was we have to touch every possible area, radio protocols, hardware, firmware, and the CAN that is being implemented in the EV for communication with the different modules. CAN is a very fast protocol that is mostly used in automotives. Let's suppose you applied a sudden brake, so immediately your airbag should be open, right? So this communication should be very fast, right? So obviously if the communication is happening, so there must be some protocol being implemented between this, and for these protocol to be very fast, so CAN is the very best option for now that is mostly used. So we started our hardware assessment with a very comprehensive list of test cases. The team assessed to ensure whether any debug port is enabled or not, like UART or the JTAG debug ports, which could lead to the extraction of the firmware from the device and can be used to patch any malicious firmware in the device to make the device work maliciously completely. We check for every component present on the motherboard of the dashboard. So we check for whether any SPI or I2C chips are there. We found the SPI chip and we successfully extracted the data, the complete firmware out of that SPI chip. And the chip was vulnerable, like we can patch any malicious firmware back on the chip. We check for the firmware extraction possible methods that is possible on the motherboard of the dashboard, and we sniff the wire communication protocols like SPI, I2C. So we try to sniff those data being transmitted on these protocols, and obviously the CAN protocol was there, so we try to sniff the CAN protocol also, and we try to check whether the team can inject any malicious data over the CAN bus or not. So obviously there was a very big list, a very comprehensive checklist, out of which I discussed only few. So Android was running on the underlying architecture of the EV. There was a Android application as well for that EV to communicate with the dashboard through your mobile. So we checked the mobile APK of that Android application thoroughly to check whether any sensitive information is not leaking. For the Bluetooth, the team sniffing the communication of the Bluetooth, and we captured the data that is being transmitted and we analyzed those packets. We tried to manipulate the data and replay those data to check whether the replay attack is possible on this Bluetooth communication or not. We tried to fudge the Bluetooth to check how it is behaving when it is receiving. When it comes to resources, we have a lot of professional tools developed by Payatu itself. For hardware, we used our EXPLIoT Nano board that is publicly available on our EXPLIoT.io store. You can go and check over there. A very complete kit is there, you can check from there. So we used this EXPLIoT Nano board for the extracting firmware out of the device, and we used bus auditor, which we used to find the debug ports present on the motherboard of the EV. And for communication and sniffing, we used a Bluetooth adapter to sniff the Bluetooth communication. So we use those tools to perform the hardware assessment. Apart from that, for the firmware assessment, we have our own framework. We use that. we were bounded with a tight deadline, and we were looking to do the very comprehensive test. So the team worked really hard in that bounded deadline to touch each and every area that should be assessed. So this was the one of the challenge we faced, that we, in the limited time, we have to do the complete comprehensive test with all the checklist we were having. We divide the severity of these vulnerabilities on the basis of the CVSS score. We found 2 critical vulnerabilities. The reason being I am saying this is critical because this, you can suppose a vulnerability giving a complete access of a device. So that's what attackers want. The first was we got the access to the ADB shell. Any normal user can get the access of the ADB shell of the EV we assessed, and this was a very critical vulnerability because once you get the access to the ADB shell, you got the complete access of the device. The second critical vulnerability was the Android running on the EV hardware was completely outdated, and there was a lot of security vulnerabilities were present on that version of the Android that was running on the device. So these are the 2 critical findings of that EV hardware that we assessed. So we got 4 high vulnerabilities. The reason I'm calling it high is because these vulnerabilities can give you an attack surface from where you can inject your malicious data. And once you inject your malicious data, yes, so you can make the device work or behave like the way you want. I2C memory extraction. The I2C chip was soldered on the motherboard of the EV, and we were able to extract the complete information from that I2C chip, and we can write back any malicious data on the I2C chip which will make the device behave maliciously. The DOS attack on the CAN bus, malicious packet injection on the CAN bus. Fourth was the dashboard was giving booting logs in the clear text, and through that log any sensitive information could be accessed from that log. So these were the 4 high vulnerabilities we found in the EV. As a security professional, I'll say that the findings which we got in this EV could be disastrous for an organization, could lead to a physical harm or a big financial loss. We did the assessment from a black box perspective. Let's suppose if any attacker got the access of the device from the whatever entry points which we found, then attacker can make a lot more changes in the complete EV system, and this could be very harmful for a person who is using an EV, and this could completely come to a cost of loss of trust of over an organization if such vulnerable EVs are running in the market. I strongly suggest to take a complete security assessment of the complete EV system and keep yourself updated with the security updates, and please go through the regular security assessment of the complete system to ensure that the device is completely protected.